Hey you, how you doing? I want to actually celebrate the work of an amazing chef. This week I'm celebrating Chef Bryant Terry, who hails from Oakland, California these days, originally from Memphis, Tennessee. This week I am celebrating the work and the amazing intersection between food and culture, the work of Chef Bryant Terry, because his work is quite incredible. I want to allow that to raise us up. His flavors and his food, as well as his food activism philosophy, it just really speaks to my heart, and I think that it might speak to yours as well. So here we are. Welcome, welcome. My name is Chef Daniela Malfitano. I also go by Chef D Malfi because my last name is kind of a mouthful. Today, we are going to be making the second dish out of a beautiful book called Vegetable Kingdom, The Abundant World of Vegetable and Vegan Recipes by Chef Bryant Terry. This is what we're talking about today. Chef Bryant Terry is an activist. He is a chef. He is someone that is making a mark in the culinary world and in the world of racial justice and food justice and the intersection. And yes, they do meet. So there's a lot of goodness in here, not just because the recipes are so delicious, but because his stories are so important. We're going to make caramelized leek and seared mushroom toast. This comes from his book, and it is a wonderful recipe because it's one of the simpler recipes in the book. The reason I like it, though, is because it's not just a fancy toast with a bunch of toppings on it. He makes this delicious whole grain mustard and pine nut spread, which we're going to make today. It's really great. It's great on anything from sandwiches as well as toast. You can even use it as like a crudité dip if you wanted to, like to dip vegetables, maybe chips, things like that. Really yummy for lots of uses. So let's start with 3/4 cup of pine nuts. And I'm going to actually do a share screen here so that you can see 3/4 cup of raw pinoles, as they're called in my culture, or pine nuts. These are raw, and I'm going to toast them up in a dry pan right next to me. And really, we're just toasting them so that they get a nice golden brown color. They should be kind of smell aromatic in just a few minutes, but you don't need any oil for this, just a dry pan to toast these up. You can see my pan here too, which is really great, so you can follow along. You can see that it won't take long. And if you don't want to do this on a pan, let's say you just want to do it in the toaster oven or the oven, you can certainly do this. You can literally just throw these pine nuts, I'll show you here up above on my screen. There we go. Raw pinoles is what it says right on the bag. You can usually find them toasted or raw. I prefer buy them raw and then toast them yourself because you're going to get a ton more flavor. You're going to actually be able to release that oil into the dishes that you're making. So for this, you can see I'm dropping them in a hot pan, and I'm letting that oil kind of rise to the skin of the surface of that pine nut. So let's see, I'm gonna give it a shake and just kind of like keep it going, keep it moving. If you don't move the pan, here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna get burnt on one side of these pine nuts, and you don't want that. What happens when these get nice and brown, or if they go a little too far and they get black, what happens? They get bitter. You nailed it. I know that's what you were thinking. That's exactly right. They get bitter. You don't want any bitterness in this. You want these pine nuts to actually like release this delicious, almost sweet quality, sweetness of the nut itself. It's actually a seed. That's beautiful. That's the thing that we want to highlight. So we were going to bring this up to temp in a dry pan, low and slow. Really important to do that so that they have a nice even toast. And every once in a while, as Chef Bryant Terry will tell you, definitely want to give this the old chef's trick. You gotta shake this pan, and I'm lifting it and shaking it to make sure that everything is getting nice and heated and toasted on all sides. Let's move on to what the next ingredient will be. It's going to be olive oil. Now, and we also want whole grain mustard. I'm gonna use whole grain Dijon mustard here. I'll show you in my overhead. This is what I'm using, and I love this stuff. It has a nice whole grain to it. All right, so these look great. I just wanna show you the pine nuts. You can see they've got nice and toasty, nice and golden brown. They're perfect. I'm gonna take this off the heat, just remove them from the heat, let them sit there, and that should be good. Now, I want to transfer these pine nuts to a mortar and pestle. I'm going to remove these pine nuts and place them inside a mortar. And I'm gonna use this pestle to actually smash it up and grind this down with some other ingredients. So I'm gonna start with my pestle here, and I'm gonna actually just run it over, and I'm gonna grind these down before I add the next ingredient. The next ingredient will be extra virgin olive oil. I'll use about 1/4 cup, and then 2 tablespoons of whole grain mustard. Grind this down as much as possible, and it takes a little force. It takes a little effort. All right, well, I think these pine nuts have had it. Look, you can see they're starting to get a little pasty. They're definitely ground up. To this, I'm going to add my whole grain mustard. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons. Gonna give 1 and 2 and 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And the last ingredient, you want a little agave. This is a blue agave. This is gonna be a really, really dark flavored agave nectar, really delicious. This is USDA organic. I want to add about a teaspoon of this. What's this going to do? This agave is actually going to stabilize this flavor profile. The sweetness is going to match that like tart, interesting aggression of that whole grain mustard. And the two are going to come together and create a beautiful melody of flavor. That's exactly what happens. It's all about mixing the flavors. It's all about celebrating a balance. Makes it so great. I am now really just mixing this together. I'm making sure that all of these ingredients are coming together. They're well mixed. You might need a little spoon because the base of this pine nut mixture might be stuck, the mortar here in the base of the bowl. If that happens, just grab a little spoon and then continue. Keep mixing it up. Now I'm gonna add a pinch of sea salt here because I think it's going to add just another depth of flavor. It's gonna enhance all these flavors that we've added. So just add a little touch and there you have it. Beautiful mustard and pine nut spread. We wanna talk about mushrooms. Chef Bryant Terry loves to use mushrooms in his dishes. He has a whole section, a whole chapter on fungi. The powerful plant that it is, beautiful. Today, I actually am gonna use beach mushrooms and some shiitakes, but you can use truly whatever mushroom you want. Chef Bryant Terry wants you to use the mushrooms that are mostly wild if you can find them. They're much harder to find, especially during quarantine, so I think we can give ourselves a break and use what we can. But I love these beach mushrooms because they're beautiful, they're very neutral, and then the shiitakes have a nice, more rich flavor. So the combination of the two are great. So I'm going to actually cook these up. Back in my pan here, you can use a cast iron or you can use a non-stick. I'm using a ceramic, so anything will work. Add about 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil again. I wanna get these mushrooms prepared. I'm gonna take these shiitakes first, and really what you're gonna do is just kind of slice these as thin as possible. You can actually remove the base if there's a long base, but usually they have already taken that, trimmed it down for you. And while this oil is getting nice and hot, I'm just preparing these mushrooms. Just that means slicing, cleaning, de-stemming, whatever you gotta do to prepare them. Every mushroom is gonna be a little different. Now look at these beach mushrooms. These are gorgeous. They come in a bundle with a little tiny base here. This base has a little bit of soil on it. It's always going to. So I like to just trim that right off. Just a little tiny bit. Trim that right off. That's perfect for the compost though. That can go right in. Now the rest of these mushrooms, I want to keep their shape. I want to keep their length. So I'm going to just like keep them as long as possible. And you see how I'm slicing them in individual length pieces so that we get little tiny mushroom. Perfect. Remember, these are also going to shrink up. So you can use a bunch. They are going to shrink. Ooh, these look great. All right. So I've got some oil. This is nice and heated. So I'm going to add these mushrooms once the oil is shimmery, and it is. Let them sit down in that pan, in that oil. Get them all in, and they are just going to soak that oil up. They are going to be so delicious. This is looking good. You guys can really now see this with me. Working hard now. These mushrooms are looking good. It's not going to take too long. It takes about 5 to 7 minutes or so. Each mushroom will take a different amount of time. So if you're using hen of the woods mushrooms or any of these larger mushrooms, it might take a little longer. Shiitakes tend to be very delicate. So do beach mushrooms, and they don't take as long. If you guys are interested in understanding a little bit about plant-based cooking, how to make it easy for yourself, hop onto my Facebook group, Plant-Based Made Easy. It's a really fun resource. Over just a couple days alone, we've been able to get about Danny, we have 100 people, right? 94 people in just a few days. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to join our group, it's called Plant-Based Made Easy on Facebook. So join the conversation there if you're interested. So important right now to choose our health and to make that a priority. And so we're using this hashtag a lot, hashtag choose health. Why is this an important conversation to be having right now? You might think, oh my God, there's so much going on, the pandemic, the protests, everything. Why should health be a priority? stop to think about that for a second. If we're not healthy as individuals, we certainly aren't going to be doing much in the world. So take care of yourself. Choose your health today. Make it a priority today so that we can actually make real change in our world, so that you can be stronger for yourself, for your families, and for our future. It all really does matter. I'm telling you, it really does. And you can see these mushrooms are nice and sauteed. They're tender looking now. They're gorgeous. So the next thing I want are some chopped leeks, because remember, this is a caramelized leek and mushroom tart, so you can't forget that. I'm going to get these leeks ready by just opening them up. You can see there's a little core on the base here. I'm gonna cut that core right off. It's just a really small bit that you have to slice off. The rest is totally edible. All right, well, I have to stir this, and I think at this point, I'm gonna turn off the heat. These look fantastic. I'm gonna just let these sit for a second. I'm going to then slice up my leeks. I want thin pieces. Remember, the star of the show here are the mushrooms, and we want the mushrooms to speak for themselves. We don't want to overpower these with two large pieces of leeks. That's going to overpower the mushroom. So really make these thin, and remember, they're going to saute up as well in this next round, and they will kind of melt away in the pan and hopefully melt away on the toast itself. I'm taking the mushrooms out of this pan. I'm placing them in a side bowl here, making sure to get every single last bit of mushroom out. Then I'm gonna add this back to the heat. This pan is going back on the heat. It's okay if there's just a little bit of mushroom here on the pan, that's all right. We're gonna lift that up. We're gonna add a tablespoon more of extra virgin olive oil, just a tablespoon. And then because this is already hot, I'll go ahead and throw these leeks right in. I'm gonna add a little tiny bit of sea salt here. You can use kosher if you want, but I've actually recently turned to sea salt. I really like it. It's less processed. It's really nice and fluffy. It's easy to grab. Now, these leeks, it's not gonna take that long. Really, the salt's gonna help these to saute up quickly. We really wanna caramelize these. So we're hoping to get this on a nice high flame. So you have it on a medium high here. So really, I'm just looking for this to kind of get nice and caramelized. So the next thing I need to do as this is happening, I don't need to stand here for the whole time. I need to talk about our toast, our bread. We need some vehicle for this toast. So we're gonna use this amazing everything rustic bun, all I could find, and this is what I'm gonna use. So I'm gonna open this up. I'm gonna place it, I think just like this. I'm gonna place it into my toaster oven. This is gonna go on a low broil. It's going to just toast up. Then I'm gonna flip it and toast the other side as well. And here we go, right into the oven. And I have this on about 475 to 500. So it's a really low broil. I'm working this leek here situation. Now it's gone ahead and sauteed down a bit. The rest is going to get caramelized, but I'm going to help this out. I want to add some thyme. Now this is fresh thyme here. I really want you to know about fresh thyme. If you don't know about it, get into it. It's so hearty and it's really, really, really delicious. I love fresh thyme. It's very easy to use. Basically, you just kind of grab the herb leaves and pull them off. And we want about a tablespoon of this. So perfect. This looks great. I think I need a little bit more. There we go. And it's okay if you get some stems, that's all right. If you find that you need a little bit more oil, you can use it. Come back to my heat source here, you can use it. You can add a little tiny bit of more salt if you wanted to. The salt's actually going to help this cook much faster. So I think I'll add a little bit, you see, a little pinch of sea salt. And you also can use just a turn of pepper. Last thing that I have to do is just finish these caramelized onions. I have to make sure that the bread is toasted, and then I'm gonna top it with some beautiful mushrooms, which we've sauteed up. They look gorgeous. Again, here are mushrooms. These are just waiting patiently for the final part of our dish. For garnish, I might use a little microgreens, which I have here, beautiful. And I might use a little scallion. So I'm gonna get that working. I'm gonna get my scallion sliced up. I think actually I'm just gonna use the green part today because honestly, Chef Bryant Terry uses tarragon as a garnish for this dish, but I couldn't find it. And I don't grow tarragon. It's one of the herbs that I don't grow. So I think what I'm gonna do are just use some of this green scallion here. That looks beautiful. All right, so this looks good. My toast is ready in just a few minutes. I've got my garnishes of green scallion. I've got my delicious mushrooms here. I'll move that. I want a little bit of extra virgin olive oil so that I can actually just brush the toast when it comes out. So I'm gonna use just a bit of that. Really just takes like a couple teaspoons. Have that, and I use a regular standard pastry brush for this. So going to use a little fresh thyme as well. So I'm going to just pull off these leaves. And this is just gonna emphasize the flavors that are already in the dish, as you know. Last but not least, Maldon sea salt flakes. This is, let me show you here on my overhead camera. These are gonna be sea salt flakes that are really, really coarse and very crystallized. I'll show you what I mean. We're gonna use this on the top. Remember, we really didn't season the mushrooms at all. The mushrooms are gonna be at the very, very top of our mushroom toast because that's what we wanna celebrate most. So we're gonna hit it with a little bit of this delicious Maldon sea salt. It's gonna add chatter, it's gonna deliciousness. All right, I think this toast is ready. I really can smell it now. Look at this toast. Beautiful, right? Like I said, this has a beautiful everything, like bagel seasoning, poppy seed, onion seed, sesame seed. Don't wanna burn this or make it bitter. So I'm just gonna keep that on the base. There you go, plate it up. Now, I told you it's gonna need something before that pine nut spread goes on, because that pine nut spread is quite chunky. Even though it has pine nuts and it has the mustard, this bread needs just a bit of this olive oil. So use a pastry brush. This is how you make something good to great. Use a pastry brush and just give this a brushing of extra virgin olive oil. Use a nice quality extra virgin olive oil where you can actually taste the fruit of those olives. Now I'm gonna use this mustard pine nut spread that we made. I'm gonna take the pestle out, place it aside, and look, it makes this chunky but yummy spread. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so good. And as we say in the restaurants, go coast to coast. You want to spread this coast to coast. You really want to make sure every single bite has a bit of this spread and every single bite has a bit of every element of the dish, coast to coast. All right, so I also want some leeks. I'm gonna have another spoon for this. These caramelized leeks are fantastic, totally perfect. The caramelized leeks add a sweetness, so this wouldn't be nearly the same if you used yellow onion. Now, can't forget the main ingredient, the reason why you came, these mushrooms, right? These delicious mushrooms. Now, this requires a bit of assembly. These mushrooms are quite, like they have like a very slippery quality to them. So they really do need and require your fingers to let them down. So you can actually see what I'm doing here. I'm actually just letting them, kind of leading them to lay where I want them to lay. If you don't do this, all the mushrooms will likely just kind of slip right off. These beach mushrooms in particular have that slippery quality. Shiitakes as well a little bit because now they have oil on them, but really important to just kind of like place them where you want. Again, coast to coast, you need every single bit of this with a beach mushroom, with a shiitake mushroom, with a bit of the leek. Make this toast happy, make it really happy, make it sing. All right, I'm going to finish with a couple more garnishes, maybe some fresh thyme, just a bit, right? We don't need much, just a bit. Some delicious green, thinly sliced scallions here. Maybe some microgreens. Well, there you have it. We have an amazing caramelized leek and seared mushroom toast. This comes from Chef Bryant Terry. This is an amazing, amazing recipe. I love it so much. Wonderful recipe, you guys. Try it. It is so simple. It doesn't take that long with all the elements, but when it comes together, it sings. It is so, 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 so good. I'm just gonna take a little bite so I can speak to what this is like. I have not actually tried it yet. I've been dying to know what is this mustard pine nut spread. Yum, 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 yum. Here we go. Oh my. So good. Mushrooms to die for. Neutral, fungi-like, sweet. That mushroom speaks so perfectly to the pine nut spread. Pine nuts, whole grain mustard. Chef Bryant Terry, yum, yum, yum. This would not work with Dijon. I'm so glad that you recommend the whole grain mustard for this. Oh my goodness, is that good. It's so juicy. It's so delicious. It's so toast worthy. So yummy. One more bite. I am so happy right now because of that. That is giving me all the hope that I need. It is making me feel better today. Thank you. Thank you, food. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. We have had a blast. I've really felt like this helped me feel better. I certainly hope that made you feel better too. Please let me know if it did. Please try this recipe and tag Chef Bryant Terry. And remember, go out there and choose health. Make health your priority. It's so important to choose your health, to get healthy today, for all of us to be powerful, to actually thrive in our life and make this world a better place. And you know where it starts? Right on your plate. Thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to spending tomorrow with you at 12 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you then.